Good evening, everybody. How you doing out there? All right. Well, welcome on in to Medical Talk in Layman's Terms with Nurse Charlene. And tonight's topic, I decided to get a little spicy and everything. The topic is parasites versus STIs. And STI is an acronym for sexually transmitted infections. And guess what my age group right now is? Anybody that's sexually active. Okay, so everybody can get it tonight and everything. So if you grown enough as a child to be sexually active, this one is for you. And if you old enough to be sexually active, this for you. And if you medium enough to be sexually active, hey, this for you. All right. So again, I say welcome on in, guys, to another installment of Medical Talk in Layman's Terms with Nurse Charlene, where I try to bridge the gap between us as human beings and healthcare, trying to destroy and blow this stigma out the water about the medical field and doctors is too nosy and stuff, and just trying to bridge that gap and stuff between us as patients, even me, Nurse Charlene, as well as you all out there and stuff, and our family members and stuff. They're not too old, they're not too young. Everybody needs to hear it, and everything. So as I get started this evening and stuff, this one is a topic near and dear to me because this is something that it has literally no age limit. It also has literally no no stigma about, oh, okay, they talking about stroke, so we're not, I don't want to hear about that and stuff. I'm too young for a stroke or whatever. So no, everybody can get it if you got a human body, and stuff. So welcome on in, Miss Sandra. Nice and on time. 7:02. Good job and everything. She's Sandra says, good evening, everybody, and Nurse Charlene and Rosie. And Rosie is my mom, you guys, and stuff. And so Rosie be getting on here too. You're gonna hear her on here. I'm gonna read every comment she puts down and stuff because she just cracks me up, but it's all in love and everything. So as I'm getting on here, medical talk in layman's terms with Nurse Charlene. I'm a nurse. And guess what today is? That's what it is. I knew I was missing something and stuff. Today is my 21st year as a licensed registered nurse. So I am a healthcare professional. Thank you, guys. Yes, 21 years. Shame on me. No. Yes, so I'm saying that with all pride and everything, that who would have known that in middle school, we used to call it junior high school, for those who don't know and everything, Frick Middle School, back in the day, about 21 years ago. No. And stuff, when I was in junior high school and stuff, I had an extra class and they gave me a free class of working with the nurse. And look what happened, you guys. Oh, thank you, Olivia. She came on. Thanks for coming on, cousin. And Miss Kathy, good evening, Miss Kathy. Good to hear from you and stuff. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. I see Miss Sandra said, congratulations. I appreciate it, you guys, and stuff. Yes. And Miss Kathy said, congratulations. Olivia said, congratulations. And good evening, Auntie Josie. Come on in, come on in. I got a good topic. It's a hot topic tonight, and it is called parasites versus STIs, which means sexually transmitted infections. That's all it is. Or the old school word, STD, and stuff like that. Thank you, Pastor Carol. Come on in. Thank you for the congratulations. Love you guys and stuff. I appreciate it and stuff. But yes, 21 years. Who would have ever thought? Because guess what I did? Just a quick little blurb. I quit every day I was at work. As soon as I couldn't plug a IV, y'all talking loud. Okay, thank you and stuff. As soon as I had to plug in the IV and stuff, I was like, I think I got Parkinson's. I'm like, oh, I quit. I had got a patient. He was chasing me down the hallway naked. He didn't know he was naked. I knew he was naked. I could see everything and stuff. But I appreciate that he chased me down the hall. I was like, yep, I quit. Yep, I quit. I quit. Well, you know what? For some reason, somebody didn't believe me because it's 21 years later and I still probably quit 3 to 4 times a week. Yes. So with all that being said, welcome on in, you guys and stuff. I thought I'd spice it up for my little 21st year, and everything. But guess what else it is? It's bittersweet. But the other thing is, because I believe that I love my grandma, Melba, Jessie, Britton, Allen, and stuff so much that I got my license on her birthday. I bet y'all won't forget that, huh? So happy heavenly birthday, Melba, Grandma Melba and stuff. Just want to make sure I put that out there also and stuff, because that was just, that's near and dear to my heart. But it's bittersweet, because if she was here, she would just be like, I did not know that dumb little girl was going. No, I'm just playing. I'm just playing and stuff. But she would have been like, oh my God, I knew she was gonna be something and everything. And yes, I am, and I appreciate it. So welcome on in, you guys and stuff. Before I get started and actually start teaching tonight, which is going to be on parasites versus STIs, sexually transmitted infections, or STDs, some people might know. Look at that board back there real quick. I got me a little parasite. Oh my goodness. Look at that. That girl is drawing. She's drawing and stuff. I got me some prescription, because you're going to need some medicine, some antibiotics probably. And I don't know what I was trying to make here, but it's a medicine bottle. And then you got you a needle, because some people got to get a shot, sometime. And then I got some little test tubes and different things over here. And then I tried to draw all these cute little viruses and parasites and stuff up there. So, I got my little, I don't know what it is, probably a crab or something, and a little, I don't know. They don't know what they are either. So, they just around, they hanging around with little bugs and things. Because if you look under a microscope, it might scare you straight. How about that? So, in the lab, they like if you have something, they might take a little scraping of it, and stuff, and they put it on a little, I think I drew one right there. That was supposed to be like a little slide that goes under the microscope, and they look at what's under there and stuff, and things be wiggling around and jiggling around and stuff like that and stuff. But this is what they kind of look like. That's a big old giant tapeworm, and they've got little teeth inside of teeth and all of that stuff. That all means something. So when I be drawing, it do look kind of cartoonish and stuff, of course, because I don't know how to draw. Like, wouldn't nobody understand it? I wouldn't even understand it to even explain it to you. This is layman's terms with Nurse Charlene. So layman's meaning keeping it simple, so somebody that knows nothing about medical can mess around and find out what this is, and everything and stuff. So that's where all of this is coming from. But before I go any further, let me read my podcast disclaimer to you guys. And that is, the podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not intended to replace professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Okay? Always consult with your physician for any medical concerns. If you have questions about a medical condition, reach out to a qualified healthcare professional. I am, but I can't be everybody's qualified healthcare professional. So, you got to go to your doctor. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay seeking it because of something you heard on a podcast. I changed it from instead of this podcast on a podcast and everything. Never delay. Guest views are their own and may not reflect the views of the host. Of course, Nurse Charlene is the host or this podcast. Okay. The information shared is for general knowledge. It should not be used for any legal or medical purposes. Okay. And, I got to say it. If you have a lawsuit and it's in good faith, I hope you win, but I can't help you with it. But I hope you win. Okay. I'm not a hater and stuff. And then last but not least, always consult with your licensed with a licensed medical professional who knows your medical history for a meaningful evaluation. And always stay informed, but always seek professional advice when it comes to your health. That's very important, you guys and stuff. Always seek professional medical advice. Don't go by the trends on social media. And I'm guilty too. I didn't have me some Rise coffee and stuff like that. I always talk about Rise, but I'm just saying that because it was a trend, and I'm a nurse and stuff, and I still tried it. I think it actually did do something, or another, and everything. And I'm privy to, some supplements, some really high class supplements, plant-based, organic, and stuff like that, which I'll be talking on another podcast about. And stuff that I'll offer up, but I'll offer it up. And then if you don't take, that's you. But I know what I'm on. I know what it did last summer for me, and stuff like that. So, hey, and stuff. But just know that you deserve everything that's, that you get good coming to you and stuff, because it does help you to understand yourself, help you to understand your body. And literally, your body is a temple, and you should treat it as such. It is your temple, and be stingy with it. Don't give it away to everybody and stuff, like that. Be a little stingy with it, because it renews itself and everything in every way and stuff, and it can reverse the ages of time and different things like that. So be particular with your body and stuff. You got to keep it until you die, and stuff like that. So don't you want to treat it nice, and stuff? It's a gift to you. It's not yours. It don't belong to you. It belongs to, what I'm saying? So, okay. All right. So parasites versus STIs, which is also known as sexually transmitted infections, also used to be known as STDs, sexually transmitted diseases. But infection is because you get infected with these diseases that we used to call a disease, and everything. So that's where that comes from. Or they used to call it BD, way, way, way back in them old people. Nah. But anyway, but venereal disease. Okay. So the purpose of tonight's cast is to compare parasitic infections and sexually transmitted infections, highlighting their similarities, their differences, their health impacts, and their treatment approaches. And both can cause long-term complications, spread within communities, and often carry the stigma, making awareness and accurate information essential, meaning that you need to hear somebody. Yes. Okay. Okay. I'm online. Okay. Thank you. I can't make it up. But parasites. Parasites are living organisms that survive, and who turned that off? Okay. Come on, baby. Living organisms that survive and thrive at the expense of a host. That's what a parasite is. Different types of parasites. protozoa. For example, it's one called Giardia lambelia. Giardia lambelia. I don't know what that is, so don't worry about it and stuff. But do you know, or have you ever heard of Trichomonas vaginalis? Okay, so that's an example of a parasite of a protozoa type. And then there's another one called Helminths. And so when I say it probably sounds different coming out of my mouth and stuff, but it's called HELMINTH. And that is examples of worms. Remember, tonight the topic is parasites versus STIs. And so these are parasites, and there's different types. So one is a protozoa. The next one is a helminth, and it is worms. For example, tapeworms or roundworms. You know, we got worms in our body, and they're probably the reason for all of our sicknesses and different things. And guess how long they get to live in there? All 30 days that you've been living. No, but all your life long, you know, and stuff. So these things are important to find out and to actually consider checking out on your body. Remember, this your body. They're not supposed to get to live inside your body and tear you up and mess you up and have you sick and nauseated. Where do you think sick and nauseated come from? Something is not flowing like a well-oiled machine inside your body. That's why all of us, just because I'm a nurse, I just go tell on it faster than you might tell on it if you're not a nurse, you know, and stuff. But it's all of this all together, you know, and stuff. So then also it's another one, another type of parasite is called ectoparasites. So meaning ecto, meaning just on top of the skin, basically. And it's a parasite. And guess what they are? Crabs. Crabs and lice and scabies. Olivia said, is C. diff considered a parasite? Yes. So C. diff is something that usually you find in the hospitals, right? And stuff. And so C. diff is it's a parasite inside of your GI system, your gastrointestinal, your gut. And it's inside the intestines part of it, you know, where your poop is getting made at, you know, and everything and stuff. And it's an infection. So guess what? Even with the C. diff, Miss Olivia and stuff, it is definitely considered a parasite, but it's called Clostridium difficile and everything. And it's very highly infectious. That's why if you've ever been to a hospital and then on the outside of somebody's door, anybody that goes in got to gown up and glove up and everything and stuff, and then take the gown down and their mask off when they leave out, because they can transfer that so easily. So even that nurse, which, you know, could be me walking in that room and stuff, I have to gown up and glove up every time I go in and out there. Oh, I forgot the apple juice. I take all of that stuff off and everything, and then go get the apple juice. If I can't get nobody to hand one to me, you know, or something like that, then I go back in. I got to gown back up in the whole thing. And it's every single time, or you're going to find out and you'll take it home with your, you know, to your family, you know, and stuff, or because it's so highly contagious. And even though that's your mother, your father, yourself, you know, anybody inside that room and stuff like that, that doesn't make you love them less. It just means that you got to gown up. It's a highly infectious parasite, you know, and it's found in your poop. So any type you can possibly touch bodily fluids, you could possibly be infected. So that's why they want you to gown up and everything. Thanks for asking that. That is a good question. Excellent question, Miss Olivia and stuff. So then I told you the ectoparasites is lice, scabies, crabs, you know, and stuff. The ones that are on the outside causing trouble, you know, and everything. So that's what that is. And that's a parasite. So then I want to talk about sexually transmitted infections. So I'm gonna be going back and forth, but I'll tell you when I'm on a parasite, when I'm on a sexually transmitted infection. But they have similarities, but they have differences. That's all I want to make sure that you know. That's why I put versus STIs and everything. And that would be sexually transmitted infections primarily spread through sexual contact. And for example, vaginal, anal and oral, and also penile for the men. So even though I said vaginal, it's the same thing as the man's penis, you know, and everything. So it's everything. So everybody can get them. It's not just one, only women or only men. It's men and women, human beings and everything. So just getting that out there. And then they're caused by and stuff. So the causes are usually one is bacteria. These are subtypes and stuff, or other categories like the causes of it and stuff. And one is bacteria is the reason for having that sexually transmitted infection. And it's bacteria. And examples of it, instead of going all the way into the names of each one, it is giving you a brief description and stuff. So I'm just going to name off the names because it would take too long and stuff. And maybe I'll do a part 2 and stuff, and that'll help out. But bacteria wise, examples of bacterial infections are syphilis, chlamydia, gonorrhea. So these are all big ones. If you've never had them, thank God. But if you have, you know, and stuff, just as long as you told on it, because I'm gonna get to that and stuff. I got something for that because I had to think about this really deeply when I was getting it together and stuff, so that because I'm trying to bridge the gap. So I don't want that stigma or stereotype that, oh, you know, I got this and stuff, you know, and stuff. So maybe I'll just hide it. Yeah, don't go away. Hiding don't cure it, you know, and stuff. So if you hide it, it gets to go and level up in your body. It's going to the next level and the next level. Remember I said, you know, my LLC is your body's a snitch, believe it. So it's say, oh, she or he don't want to tell. He did it already, you know, you got it, you got burnt, you know, and stuff like that. But if you don't tell, you don't get fixed, you know, and stuff. So guess what? It don't just go away like, oh, she ain't even giving me no attention, I'm just gonna leave. Yeah, no, it don't do that and stuff. Guess what it do? It level up and it turn into a superhero. And then guess what? You try to take some little pills or something like that, guess what? It'd be like, I'll kill these pills. I ain't got time for this, you know, and stuff. And it'll keep on leveling up on you and stuff, you know. So the whole point of that is I'm like, yeah, it's crazy because it gets superpowers if you don't say anything. Miss Sandra said, can a person know if they have a parasite without sex? No, but it will do things, which I am going to get to that part, Miss Sandra. That's an excellent question and stuff. And does a person know if they have parasites without sex? Because they're not just sexually transmitted. And I'll tell you why they're not just sexually transmitted. It could be you went on that trip to that exotic, oh yeah, I'm going to Africa to see my little roots and where I'm from. I get, no, I'm from San Francisco. And so I go to San Francisco and find out my roots. But I'm just saying this to say that, you went out there, and what if you drank their water or ate their food, you know, and stuff like that. And then you get caught up, you know, and stuff like that. So definitely that part, you know, and stuff. So could you imagine that and everything? So they're not just caused from just sex, even parasites like tapeworms and stuff. You could have drank some water that had the actual parasite. They're small. You can't see them. So you don't know you drinking a worm. You wouldn't drink a worm, you know, and stuff like that. But if you don't know it's there, then yes, that's a problem. That can happen to any one of us. It doesn't matter, and stuff. Whether we take exotic trips, that's one way, but also the other way is you can find out from just eating the wrong thing, being in close quarters and stuff. But I'm gonna tell you where they come from. So just listen out, Miss Sandra. Good question. So for the causes of sexually transmitted infection, I said one was bacteria, and that's syphilis, chlamydia, and gonorrhea and stuff. For viruses, there's HIV, which is leads to AIDS, and everything. Then there's HPV and stuff, and that's human papilloma virus. That's for women and stuff. HPV can be on our cervix. That's why there's a reason for getting a pap smear like every 2 years or something like that after you're sexually active and stuff. Once you become sexually active, they want you to get that pap smear. That's what they're scraping for, to make sure that you don't have the human papilloma virus, because it actually turns to cancer. So you see where that's coming from, why it's so important to have the pap smears, these pap smears, and they put you up in the little stirrups with your feet up in the air and your butt down towards the doctor, and they going in there doing special things that I think is from hell, but you got to get it done. If you got a body, you got on down, didn't you? Stuff. But anyway, and then there's also a viral infection called herpes and stuff. And I don't know if anybody's ever heard of it and stuff, but or maybe heard the name and stuff, because I know the name has been out there for a long time. But that's where that comes from, and it's viral. There's also one caused by parasites, a sexually transmitted infection caused by parasite, and that would be examples of Trichomonas vaginalis, or pubic lice and stuff, or crabs, they call them, little crabs. I guess they might look like crabs or look like one of these little pieces I done drew up here. I drew so many little things. I was just trying to find something that looked more like a Krabby Patty right there and stuff. But crabs or scabies. And scabies are kind of found, that most of them are found in like homeless shelters and stuff like that and everything, but also in the hospital where I work. Yeah, we had like scabies scares, and stuff, and a couple nurses got caught up and stuff. But that don't, just because I got away from it, that doesn't mean that I couldn't have been the one to walk in that room too, and stuff like that. So definitely something to be careful about. That's why, it's good to practice good hygiene. Like when you come home from work, never get in your bed with your clothes on from work and stuff, or wherever you're at, outside in the streets, and stuff like that. It doesn't matter and stuff. That's bad hygiene. Shame, shame, shame on us as a whole. Because I'm not putting nobody or a stigma on anybody. I'm saying don't do it. It's very dangerous. Putting your kids to bed with their clothes that they came from Head Start or kindergarten with and stuff like that, letting them jump in the bed to take a nap and stuff, and they dirty and stuff. That's how they get sick. And then guess who they gonna get sick? They mama, they daddy, and stuff like that, whoever take care of them, and stuff like that. And so it's important that we pay attention to these things, because it's minor things that cause the biggest problems for us and everything. So then parasites, the transmission. Guess what parasites? So Miss Sandra, just to let you know and stuff, this is some of the things that causes that can get you a parasite inside your body. And that would be contaminated food or water. Remember I said that drinking that water, you can't see the worm, but as he grow inside of you, or he or she worm, whatever it is, grow inside of you, it grows inside of you. It doesn't care what it is and stuff. It's in the host now. And the host is us, human beings, and stuff like that. And they get right down in our gut and tear it up. When we get fiery diarrhea and all types of stuff, bubble guts all the time. When I say bubble guts, that's just a little slang term for having the gassiness because you're about to get diarrhea. So you bubbling like lava in there before it decides to shoot out. And I don't know if anybody ever had some where they sat down to go poop and it sounded like they peeing. Yeah, that's diarrhea. That's bubble guts and everything. It's going down. And then you got gas and all of that stuff built up in there. It's very special. That's all I'll say. But anyway, for transmissions of parasites, contaminated food and water, poor sanitation, insect bites, don't sleep on them, treat them. Skin contact, skin to skin to contact, because that's how you get the lice and the pubic hairs and pubic lice and stuff like that, and crabs and stuff. Crabs, and then some of them are through sexual activity. So it's not just sex that can get you a parasite. It's also the contaminated food and water, which is one that we are probably all guilty of in some shape or form during our lifetime and everything. And then the skin contact and getting lice or crabs and stuff like that through sexual, the pubic hair and stuff, and they transfer. And now that person got them, then they lay eggs on that person. So if you hide it, it doesn't matter. Hi, Auntie Barbara. Welcome on in. And so she said, hi, Bubbles. Again, that is my nickname. And the people that know me intimately know that's my nickname and stuff, because I needed love early in life. So when I was laying in my bassinet, somehow I figured out how to entertain myself. And I used to take my spit and make bubbles, and they used to float up in the air. I think I was the first bubble machine and stuff. And that's where they got bubbles from. They started, why she got bubbles coming from her bassinet? And I was like, I don't know why. I needed entertainment. You wasn't entertaining me, so I entertained myself, hey. And stuff. Some people are lucky like that. And stuff. Yes. Welcome on in, Auntie Barbara, and stuff. So then the risk of contracting parasites is traveling to endemic areas. Remember, I'm going to exotic Bali, or I'm going to Africa, to my motherland and stuff. I'm going to Jamaica, and everything and stuff. But it's endemic. So remember, you heard from COVID and stuff, pandemic and everything. Endemic meaning pan is around, all around, like a panoramic view, and stuff like that all around. So that means it's spreading all over. Endemic meaning a certain region or area. You visit that tribe, or you visit that so-and-so, and they might have that malaria, and they know how to deal with it, and they have their special medicines. But you're coming from United States, where everything all fancy smancy and stuff, and then you go into their little area and stuff like that, and you can introduce them to something that could wipe out their whole, tribe or something like that, or their whole little village and stuff. But they can also have something that's in their village that can knock you out, and jack you up and everything and stuff. Miss Sandra said, do pork have parasites and you can't see it? What does that say? Where is the man of the hour? Your dad, Mr. Buckner. You know what? I forgot to text him in time and stuff, so he might not have got on. He'll probably catch the replay, but hopefully he'll get on and stuff. Maybe I can get somebody to call him and stuff. But in the meantime and stuff, that's nice and stuff. But Sandra, that was a good point you brought up yet again. Thank you so much. And that is, does pork have parasites and you can't see it? Absolutely, pork has parasites and you can't see it. That's why they tell you to cook, pork. Swine is made of a lot of parasites and stuff. They eat trash, the pigs, that it come from and stuff like that. So even though it might be delicious in some regards to whoever does eat pork or whatever and stuff, at the same time, it does have its parasites. That's why you have to make sure your food is well done and everything. But guess what? All animal products have some type of parasites or worms or something like that they eat and stuff. Chickens and different things like that. So that's why you got to make sure your chicken is done, or you're gonna find out. Make sure that beef is well cooked, and stuff, or you're gonna find out. And so make sure your swine, your pig, is cooked well done, all the way through, because you'll find out you got to cook them parasites out of it in order to, still a lot of stuff is unhealthy for us and stuff. But if you cook it enough and stuff, or that water, you can't buy the fancy bottled water and stuff. So you boil your water, you at least giving yourself a fighting chance, if that makes sense and stuff. So I was on parasites and I was on the risk, so traveling to those endemic areas, poor hygiene and sanitation. That means their garbage, they're bathing the cow in the same water that they're taking a bath in, and somebody up the river is peeing in the water, and so on and so forth. If you get my drift with that and stuff. And then immunocompromised state. That means you got a low immunity. Your white blood cells could be down or something like that. It could be from a sickness. It could be from, disease matters and stuff like that. But if you have a low immunity and stuff, this is where the parasites can get in easier, and stuff. So you got to be very careful with your food, even fresh fruit and vegetables. Everything has some type of worm or bug or something that's living on it, just like you trying to live on it, and stuff like that. So just watching yourself, just really washing, even a banana. It seems innocent enough. It's yellow, and stuff. I'll let it, get there. And then guess what we do? It's inside a peel. So we peel the banana back and we think, okay, that's safe. But the extra step would be to have washed that banana off, because we don't know who else put their hands on it, and they might not have washed their hands, and then they coming out with contamination on their hands, and then they touch that banana, and it might not be good for them, but it might be good for you, and so on and so forth and everything and stuff. So that's where that comes from. And then also close living conditions. That means that, times is tough, people are gonna kind of shack up, and it might be a lot of people in the same room, 10, 15 people to the same room. You got your corner, but y'all all got the same cover. So if one person get it, all of y'all getting it. One person visit, they giving everything to everybody in the room, or everybody in the room giving them something, and stuff like that. That's where that comes from. Close quarters, confined spaces, like shelters and different things like that, where they got to bed you up, and everybody comes from a different area and stuff. Stop it. And stuff. And so STIs, sexually transmitted infections. The transmission is number one, sexual activity. It doesn't matter what kind, sexual activity. You know what it is. Everybody knows what it is that's of age and everything. But sharing needles. So that, we got the drug thing, and what is it, heroin. We got methamphetamines and stuff. And a lot of these are drawn up, and, you get into a kinship with that person. You on drugs, they on drugs and stuff like that. And it's just like sharing, the pipes, or sharing straws now or whatever and stuff like that. When you're doing drugs and stuff, is the same thing as sharing needles and stuff, because they just poke their skin, and that's their blood and whatever their blood has in it and stuff. And then you use the same needle, draw your dope up and stuff. And then you're poking the dope plus whatever they poked in there when you're sharing needles and stuff. Also, it could come from the mother to the child during childbirth and everything. Yes, welcome on in, Romero, my nephew. Thank you for coming on and everything and stuff. So then there's the mother to child during birth, and stuff. They have some type of infection and stuff like that, and then they pass it on to the baby, because guess what? The baby comes out of, if it's a vaginal birth and stuff, it comes out of the vaginal canal. So if that vaginal canal is contaminated with a sexually transmitted infection, guess what? anybody touching that. So the doctor, that nurse and stuff, and everybody else, we touching. Of course, we got our gloves on. We got our. That's why they make you have gloves and gowns and all of this stuff, because they're trying to give you personal protective equipment, and stuff like that. So we try not to do that, but that doesn't mean it's always gonna work. Sometimes we'll have goggles because we don't know what's squirting out everywhere and stuff, and that's how the actual medical staff gets contaminated also. And then also occasionally blood exposure. That means an accidental blood stick, and stuff, or accidental gush of blood or something like that, and everybody get it, some jump in your eye, on your lip, or something like that. You don't know. I mean, we try to get out the way and duck and dodge, and stuff, but that don't mean you lucky every time. So, you just gotta watch out. And it can be the most innocent thing, and it still can happen to you. So that another thing with my cousin Olivia bringing up C. diff, and stuff like that. That's a big deal and everything. And it's something that's out there. And so the transmission of sexually transmitted infections, or STD, or whatever and stuff, is the transmission route. Sexual activity is number one. Number two is sharing needles. And then, I did that already. Ha ha ha. But anyway, your risk now, the risk of that. So sharing needles, mother to child during childbirth, and occasional blood exposure. Then you got risk, unprotected sex. That's number one. Miss Olivia said, can syphilis be transmitted to the baby without vaginal exposure? Yes, because it's already inside your blood, and stuff. It's not just hanging out in the place where it was created at, or exposed to and stuff. It's still in your blood. So yes, and untreated syphilis, not just any kind. So that means that you have to go ahead and put that baby at the risk for that antibiotic to try to kill the actual infection and stuff. The baby gets exposed to that. That's why they said you could pass that through the milk, or if you had like HIV infection and then you have a baby, that baby can get possibly get that during child in utero or inside your stomach, but also during childbirth and stuff, because they're exposed to the same blood that you got running through your veins, and stuff. They're living off that same blood, taking what they need off that same blood. So yes, that's a problem and everything. So yes, it's definitely puts them at risk. Even if you had a cesarean section, they're still coming through that blood, and everything. Welcome on in, Rosie Granny Allen. That's the love of my life, Miss Rosetta, my mom. And she said, it says she is watching in Jesus' name. Amen. Happy to be on late, but I'm here. Amen. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate you. Nobody's late, because you can always go back and catch the replay. But the only difference is I won't be on to actually read your comments or anything, but I will answer them after we're off the air and stuff. I go back and I look at things and stuff. And if I missed anybody, it is, please don't take it as offense and stuff, because that's not what it's intended to do. Maybe I'm reading at the time, so I don't see your comment or something like that. But I love everybody coming on. I love everybody getting the answer, because it may not fit you and what you're doing at this time. That's okay. But what about your friend that knows nothing, and stuff like that? What about somebody else, younger or older than you, that needs to get their coattail pulled? You could say, hey, this was some good stuff I learned on here and stuff. You need to consider this and stuff, and go by that and everything and stuff, because it really is good stuff. And I'm just trying to close that gap so that, doctors, they ain't no good and stuff. They probably ain't. I ain't gonna sit up here and go one way or another. What I'm gonna try to say is, They didn't go to that doctoring school, and medical school and stuff for 18,000 years and all of that, and 18,000 hours and all of that for nothing. So they need to practice on somebody. They need to get somebody in there and stuff. And guess what? I know they so nosy. They want to know, have my uncle ever had this or my auntie had that? What they need to know that for? Because they want to know, have your uncle ever had Parkinson's? Have your auntie ever had cancer? Have your grandmother ever had it? Or have, your sister, your brother, or something like that? Because if they've had it, that means it's a gene running in your body. So they're not actually being nosy. But if you don't tell them, guess what? They'll help their family and you won't be helped, and stuff. So I'm just saying, they'll help their family and you are doing a disservice. And I swear that people with the most insurance and the best insurance don't go to the doctor. Stop doing that. They just getting to keep the free money. Guess what? Somebody else on the same plan as you, they taking advantage of all of that. So they getting all the medicine and all the stuff. And guess what? And you're not getting nothing. Don't you love your body? Or don't you try to? It's the only one you're getting. It's the only one you get. I don't know what you're coming back at or where that go and stuff. But hey, come on, y'all. Let's take care of ourselves. Let's love ourselves and stuff. Miss Barbara said, love you, Rosie. I hope you hear that, Miss Rosie. And then also all good information, Bubbles. Yes, thank you, Auntie. And stuff. So then the risk for sexually transmitted infections, I told you, unprotected sex. That means not using any type of barrier between you and that person. So that means that it's so many other things I can go into, but it would be a rabbit hole. But just knowing unprotected, meaning you don't put on gloves to go in and do surgery, or you don't put on gloves to commit that act, and stuff. You just going in there free willing, and you might mess around and find out, if that makes sense. It's another one, F around and find out. I'll let y'all figure what the F stand for, around and find out and everything. And then there's multiple partners. That means not business partners, but handling that business partner. And so I'm saying multiple partners. That means you're fortunate enough for a lot of people to like you, and a lot of people want your body and stuff, and everything and stuff, and you give it to everybody, you equal opportunity lender, and stuff. But guess what? If you don't protect that multiple body to these other people, because guess what? I'm attached to me, right? And then whoever else I dealt with, and stuff. And then, we got all these different things, bisexual, trisexual, pansexual, whatever the actual, and stuff like that. And so whoever I'm dealing with, they might have 10 more people attached to them. And that person might have 10 more people attached to them, and so on and so forth. So let's get real about it, and stuff. This is no joke, I try to laugh sometimes, I got my little scary monster, the tapeworm in there tearing stuff up, and that's all they teeth and stuff like that. I'm doing that for a reason, to keep it simple, but also let you know it ain't no joke, and stuff at the end of the day and stuff. Miss Olivia said, which one would cause more damage, parasite or STI? Actually, they're equal opportunity. They're different ways of causing damage, but they're equal in how susceptible, and they both cause death. So if I didn't say that yet and stuff, they both cause death. So you see where I got my little cartoonies and all of that, and I'm like, that's a little crab and all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, this is not no joke, and stuff. They both cause death. So the most common to us would be our sexually transmitted infections. But the most uncommon, because we don't talk about it, would be our parasites. But guess what? They both started at the same time when you was born. You know what I'm saying? So guess what? They both OGs in it. and stuff. They both characters, hot messes, whatever you want to call them and stuff at the end of the day and stuff. So I'm just bringing them to the forefront. I'm pushing them to the forefront. I'm snitching, but not in that other snitches get stitches, but snitching on them because they gonna cause us some trouble, and that's what they're there for, to cause trouble and stuff. Your risk, being high risk for sexually transmitted infections and stuff. The biggest thing is having a history of sexually transmitted infections and stuff. Having that history is like, oh my goodness, and stuff, because that means you already had an infection before and stuff. And be it as it may, we don't have to, find out what you had or nothing like that. I'm saying, did you get it fixed? I don't care about what you got or what you had or what you contracted or what I contracted or something. Did you tell on it? Did you get it fixed? That's what I'm here for. I don't care about the other stuff. I'm not, oh, that one got that, and no, and stuff. Did you get it fixed? That's all I'm concerned with and stuff. So also the lack of screening and treatment. They too nosy. I don't want to tell them about all my business. They don't need to know that I had 20 partners or 75 partners or whatever. Yeah, they do need to know. Because guess what? 75 times 10 on each one of them, that's 750, and stuff like that. So all of y'all interconnected like a big old web. Y'all all family. Because you slept with this one, and he slept with that one, and she slept with that one, and he slept with her, and she slept with this. You know what I'm saying? It ain't just about you, boo. It's about all of us, and stuff. That's why it's so prevalent. That's why it's everywhere and stuff, because everybody didn't have to deal with it and stuff. That's why it's so hard. That's why it hit hard. It hit different and everything and stuff. But also the stigma. If I don't tell them and stuff, it ain't me. I'm clean. It ain't me and stuff like that. And then, yeah. So you ain't gonna get it fixed? You got it now. You did the act and you got it. So you're not going to try to fix it, even for you? And then you turn around and use the same face towel on your child, or I'm just saying, and stuff. Or you turn around and you stepped out of the marriage or something like that, and then you got it. Yeah, it's still hanging there. Now you gave it to your partner, and stuff like that. So if you understand why I'm saying that and stuff, that's what I'm trying to say. It's dangerous. Everybody needs to get fixed. That's why they try to tell you to tell the other people. And the other people need to tell them, but how many gonna do it? That's why AIDS went through and wiped us out like that and stuff for a minute. And only the men and the men and the women, they get it. No, it's everybody, because some of the men were sleeping with men and women. So whatever they call from this one or that one and stuff, you get to have it too. Y'all get to share and stuff. I'm just saying and everything. So then also, Rosetta Granny Ellis said, love the pictures. Teach. Amen. Thank you. You saw me drawing them pictures. I was working hard too. I don't know what I drew. Okay, I drew a condom package right there. You probably can't see it, but I was getting down. My heart was in it and everything and stuff. And Rosie said, Granny Allen said, tell on it. Believe it. Yes, indeed. Amen. Yes, tell on it. Let's go. Let's tell and everything. So parasites, these are symptoms and stuff. So parasites, they're often non-specific. That means they do what they feel like when they feel like it. Maybe they'll give you diarrhea, maybe they won't. And sometimes they're asymptomatic. That means away from, they don't give you no clue that they there. They don't snitch most of the time. This is parasites. When you're trying to find the symptoms, like, how do I know I got a parasite or a big old giant fat worm, like you said, floating around me? Yeah, you might not know. But if you're aware of your body, it's gonna do some clues. That's what snitching is. The clues is you get a fever and you didn't do nothing wrong, and stuff, and you get a fever. That's one way. Or something is itching, or something is burning, or you just can't get rid of this diarrhea. Everything you eat, I don't even eat pork no more because I get diarrhea. No, it might have been pork that time, but it might be fish the other time. Undercooked fish, undercooked this, undercooked that. Every time we undercook something, we jack it up and stuff, and then we find out. Unwashed fruit and stuff, like going to the store. Ooh, them grapes look good. They big and everything. Did you wash it with soapy water? No. Did you wash it, period? You just wiped it on your clothes. Your clothes might got a parasite on them. You see what I'm saying? So it's common, and I did it. Okay, I did it. I went in there. I ate a grape before and stuff. Shoot, I'm gonna be looking for plums. By the way, plums are in too and stuff. I was talking about watermelons last Tuesday. I'm talking about plums now. Woo-hoo, I got a hold to some plums at Sprouts. Woo. Best plums I ever had in my life. Okay, but anyway, going back to parasite and symptoms. So because it's often no symptoms show up or not specific, like I know that if I get diarrhea, it's a parasite. Like you can't just put money on it and stuff. These are common signs that you better look for to at least tell on it. It's telling on you by giving you diarrhea, abdominal pain, weight loss because they're inside your intestines and they're eating all your nutrients before you could get it. So now you're malnutrition, which means away from nutritious, is mal, meaning bad nutrition. Everything's not getting absorbed because it's a worm in there eating your food, eating your bread you breaking, and it's getting in there getting that, and stuff. That nice vegetable salad that you had or whatever, fruits and vegetables and stuff like that, it's getting that. You're not getting it. You're not getting them antioxidants. It's the parasite is getting it. That's why you look malnutrition and you start breaking down and everything and stuff. So then there's other things like itching and rashes. That's scabie and lice and crabs. Crabs are what they are. They little pinchy bugs. I don't know. They crabs. I don't know what they look like and stuff. Maybe they look like a crab or something under the microscope. Because remember, these are microscope looking. You might see them crawling or something like that, but they're so small that you got to literally look at a slide to really know what they look like. And once you find out, you're trying to rip all your skin off, rip all your hairs out your pubic area or something like that and start trying to get rid of these things. But that's what happens. And remember, they're dirty, but they're not like you think. Because if you got your little 5-year-old kid coming home from kindergarten and the whole class had to go home and get rid in their hair because they all got lice, head lice or something like that, those are like a form of crab and stuff. And they come from them flipping around on the same carpet and stuff. And the little crabbies get in there. And then everybody got them, and stuff. Then they bring them home to their family. And if you're not paying attention to the little innocent little baby and stuff, guess what? They pass them right on to you. They on your cover, they on your pillowcase, and so on and so forth. And if you don't do nothing about them, they just gonna spread through the family like a wildflower, and everything and stuff. So yes. So then we got I said diarrhea, abdominal pain, weight loss because they're in your intestines, eating all your good food and stuff before you can even make what I call a turd with it. Itching and rashes from the scabie and lice and crabs and stuff, vaginal and urethral, meaning the penis discharge, and as like for example trichomonas, and then you got your fatigue and anemia because if you got a worm infection, you'll have a low blood count, like your hemoglobin level will drop and stuff like that, causing you to be diagnosed with this thing called anemia. And then there's fatigue and all of that type of stuff. So then we got Miss Sandra said, if a parasite gets inside a woman and she does not have sex with a man, do it take longer for a man to detect, and is there mate and male and female worms, or some good stuff, Nurse Charlene. So basically, thank you, Sandra. And so basically, she's saying, does it take longer in a man than a woman? No, it takes longer in how you start, how it starts eating at your food, and stuff. Because you're gonna notice by being malnutrition, you're not getting enough nutrition, so now you're getting fatigued. You starting to, and it's not a cold or not this or that and stuff. That's where that comes in at and stuff. And then also with these worms, they grow over time, so they stay in your body undetected for a long time. But that's why I said, I keep on bringing up your body is a snitch, believe it and stuff, because when I say that, it's a snitch is like a tattletale. So your body is telling, it's like, hey, oh, you notice you didn't get no vitamin C out of that. Your immune system is there. Yeah, you ate a lot of oranges, huh? Yeah, that worm is eating your orange juice that you didn't, your body trying to process, and before it can get to it, it's snatching it up. And then when they start getting real greedy, that's when you really get the signs. They can't hide no more. They got to come out the closet. They got to tell on themselves and everything and stuff. So that's where it all comes from and stuff. And it gets real rough, real quick, and stuff. So for STIs, sexually transmitted infections, the symptoms are can be silent, especially in chlamydia and human papilloma virus. That's the one that the women got to get a pap smear for every year and stuff. Just like a man gets a prostate, a woman gets a pap smear and stuff. A prostate check for a man, because the women don't have a prostate, but men don't have a vagina. So women get a pap smear, and it checks their uterus and stuff, and they take a scraping, and stuff like that, and then check you for this human papilloma virus, which actually levels up into cancer. And then that's when you have uterine cancer down there in that area and stuff. And that's another bad sign, because it's very tough to get rid of, and stuff. And then you are introduced to cancer, Operation Cancer. And everybody know cancer ain't no good and stuff. So that's how serious it is. The common signs of sexually transmitted infection is genital sores and ulcers. That would be your herpes, and also don't sleep on syphilis and everything. Abnormal discharge. That would be your gonorrhea, your chlamydia, your trichomonas. If you've never heard of them, congratulations and everything. And if you have heard of them because you read on them or whatever, or know somebody with them and stuff, congratulations, because you're in the know and stuff. Let's just make sure that everybody is getting it fixed if you do mess around and find out, or F around and find out and stuff. Painful urination or pain during intercourse, for the man or the woman and stuff, that's a sign that something is wrong. It should not burn like the Dickens, when you pee, and stuff. For a man or a woman, it should not burn. It should just come on out, and it should be a relief, not tell on it. Please tell on it. Don't worry about, I'm burning. I ain't gonna tell nobody. Yeah, it's gonna keep on burning. Then it might take something, and then next thing you know, they cutting lips and tips off, okay. Pelvic pain or infertility, that's where sometimes this comes in. It's one that you didn't tell on, and then when you're ready to have kids, you can't have kids because it was a long-term sexually transmitted infection that you didn't go get fixed at the doctor. You went and took some over-the-counter something or so-and-so, or you took some sea moss and stuff like that, and you thought that was gonna fix it. Yeah, nope, not at all and stuff. So then warts and bumps and skin changes. I told y'all about it was a skin topic that I did. The topic was skin, and I said that about moles and stuff, and don't sleep on them, especially when they start shape shifting and stuff, or they get bigger. And then they start looking all shaped differently and stuff. I told you that one looked like a crouching tiger and a hidden dragon or something like that. Yep, go tell on it. Tell on it. It ain't supposed to be shape shifting and all of that stuff. So if you got a mole and it was cute for a minute and it was a beauty mark or whatever and stuff, and that bad boy start turning into something else and stuff and start making little origami shapes and stuff, tell on it. Tell on it, because they need to take it off and stuff before it do something else to you. And then for the big thing is treatments and stuff of parasites and of sexually transmitted infections. For parasites, they have anti-parasitic medications like metronidazole and tinidazole, and that will be for your trichomonas, whereas permethrin or ivermectin and stuff would be for your lice and scabies. It's like RID. I think it's called RID, RID, and stuff. And that's when the kid come home with the lice in their hair or something like that and stuff, pretty hair and stuff. They got some little lice in there and stuff. That would be your permethrin or ivermectin and stuff. And that would be to take that away. You know, the kid's going to be itching. You know, they miserable and stuff. Get it away from them. They just babies and stuff. And then they got a one called albendazole or mebendazole. And those are for worms or tapeworms and stuff like that. So don't sleep on that. And anybody that asked about the worms or different things, look for the comments after the live is over with and stuff, because I'll be getting off in probably about 7 or 8 minutes. But in the meantime and stuff, look for these comments and stuff, because I'm going to comment under your stuff, because that's where this all comes in. There's also supportive care that you could do for parasites, which is your hydration, because it's going to dehydrate you. After it make you diarrhea so much, then what else is left? And then you're not getting none of your nutrition because the worm is eating it all. You know what I'm saying and stuff. So then you need to hydrate. You need to treat the anemia, maybe get a blood transfusion and stuff like that. And then also nutrition. Now you got to go from malnutrition, which is not good nutrition, it's bad nutrition, to good nutrition. So putting that stuff back in your body. But after you take care of the problem, getting them things out of you and everything and stuff. And there is a way to get them out of you, so you don't have to die, you know, or anything. So then prevention, good hygiene. That's why I said, don't get in your bed with your same clothes you had on all day. You went to the store and all of that stuff. Then you jump right in your bed and between your nice clean covers with that and stuff like that. Yep, that's a no-no. And then also clean water, making sure your water system and where you get your water from to take your baths and different things like that is clean. Protective measures, you know, and stuff like hand washing is the best one, but hand sanitizers and so on. Screening, getting your screenings for and doing things for sexual contact if relevant, you know, and stuff. Find out who you messing with. Find out who you effing with, you know, and stuff like that. For STIs, sexually transmitted infections, I need to get this out, you guys, and stuff. Bear with me for a few more minutes. So for the bacterial STIs, there's antibiotics like penicillin for syphilis, azithromycin for chlamydia, you know, and different things like that. That's just examples of bacterial antibiotics. And then viral antibiotics or whatever, viral treatments, there's no cure, but there's antiviral management, and that would be your HIV medicines and stuff like that. So if you got HIV and stuff, for herpes, they got this thing called acyclovir, you know, and stuff like that. And then for HPV, which is human papillomavirus, what I told you, for the women that sexually active women getting their pap smears and stuff, they got a vaccine, a HPV vaccine and stuff that you can have taken and stuff to help prevent that, because HPV leads to cancer of your uterus and all the things down near your cervix and stuff like that. So it's very important. Parasites, parasitic STIs, they're the same as the parasitic medications and stuff that I told you under parasites. And then also the prevention, Using a condom, a innocent little condom right there and stuff. If you gonna do what you gotta do and get on down and stuff, okay, I can't judge you. I can't take on everybody's, everything and stuff, but I can inform you so that you do it safer, and stuff. If you got to do it and it's a must, it's a must. Okay. And stuff. Let's do it safe. So using those condoms, getting those vaccinations, ladies and men. There's a vaccination, the HPV for women and the hepatitis B shot for men and women and stuff. Getting your regular testing. If you got partners and stuff, making sure that you know them enough that you didn't just sleep with them and you don't even know anything about them and stuff. And then they long gone and then dropped off a package with you. The package, like R. Kelly said back in the day, and stuff, the package and stuff. Being able to notify your partner, that means you got to actually remember who they were, and stuff when you slept with them and stuff and everything. Also, not just committing the act, but actually taking the time to say, do I love myself enough that I got to do this one? I got to do her. I got to do him, and stuff like that. Find out who they are and let them find out who you are and stuff. Getting that treatment. Don't just leave it to chance. A couple myths versus facts, and only because these were really good and stuff, but the myth, the untruth. Only unclean people get parasites and STIs. Only the dirty people get that. Anyone can get it and be infected regardless of their hygiene or lifestyle. Because you don't even know how you got it, some of the stuff, and everything. So it ain't just for the dirty people or only that bum that be by the Dollar Tree and stuff. He the only one be getting STDs, STIs or whatever, and parasites and stuff. I know he got about 60 parasites, and you might have 62, and you look good. You know what I'm saying? So, okay. And stuff. Myth. You'll always know if you have one. Because y'all always know, huh? Well, you'll always know if you actually listen to your body, because your body is a snitch and you better believe it. But anyway, all that aside, and everything and stuff, you'll always know if you have one. That's an untrue fact. Many are silent until the complications, until it starts snitching, until you start burning, until you start itching, until you start bleeding for no reason. A man shouldn't probably have a period, so they should be bleeding out the end of their, their part, and stuff. Yeah, that's a sign and everything. Other than that, they're silent. And then you just give it to somebody else and give it to somebody else. I'm clean. I got Ivory. I don't use nothing but Dove and Ivory, so I know my things is good. Yeah, I bet they do that. Maybe they even smell good. Just wonderful, huh? And you can still have it. Yep. You got to start becoming aware of your body, or you're gonna mess around and find out. Okay. So then washing after sex prevents any STIs, sexually transmitted infections. So after I had sex and I didn't got on down, I performed, I got on down and stuff. If I wash up, I told you that Dove soap and stuff, I'm good and stuff. You right? Fact. Only barrier protection like condoms or dental dams reduce your risk. Putting a glove on it. So that will be your condom, or dental dams. They're these little the size of a finger, I guess maybe somebody, because it says dental dam. So I'm going to assume it's like a little tongue condom or something like that, because we done found other ways to level up on sexual activities. Okay, all right. And stuff. Miss Sandra says she really enjoyed this podcast tonight, and but must go. See you next Tuesday. All right. Thank you for joining in, and thank you for your participation, Miss Sandra. I'm almost done, you guys. For anybody else that's hanging around for a second more and stuff. Myth. STIs sexually transmitted infections and parasites only affect adults. Untrue. Facts. Listen to this, you guys. Infants, so this is congenital at birth. STIs can be inside your body and can infect the child, the newborn child, as well as intestinal parasites can infect the newborn child when the child is in your stomach and still growing and everything, and then it can't get no food because your tapeworm is eating it that you don't even know you have. You know what I'm saying? So that's where that comes in at. And then also the elderly can also be infected and stuff. So even though they're older, they can't do nothing and stuff. Yeah, they can, and they do get it. They burn just like everybody else. You're a human and stuff. But at the end of the day, the take-home message: parasites are living organisms exploiting the host. That is you and me. They spread through food, water, environment, and sometimes sex. Meaning either way, you can get it. Sexually transmitted infections are primarily transmitted through sexual contact, caused and they are caused by bacterial means, viral means, or parasitic means. Meaning they all do the same thing. They equal opportunity destroyers. Okay. Both parasites and sexually transmitted infections can be silent, leading to a severe health problem if untreated. Meaning, if you don't tell the doctor and you don't answer all them questions, or you don't go get nothing, you don't get no antibiotics, no antivirals, no nothing, guess what? It's staying there and it ain't leaving. You can leave the world, but it'll be right in there like, yep, I'm going to ride this little boat on out and stuff. It ain't going nowhere. Actually level up into, like I said earlier in the live, into a superhero and everything and stuff. So that's where that comes in at. And last but not least, early detection, treatment, and prevention are key to saving your life. Thank you all who painfully stayed 17 minutes after and stuff to listen to that. I hope that it reached who it had to reach and everything. This was very important. It was a viewer's pick. So someone on there that's on there with you watching just like you and stuff was the one that picked this out. And I decided to go ahead and pivot away from food and nutrition. It was getting a little too boring and stuff. And I never want to be boring. I want to be cutting edge. I want to be right, factual and everything and stuff. So that's why I went on in and got on down with you guys and stuff. I hope somebody gets something out of this. If you missed the beginning, middle, or end and everything and had to go and stuff, that is fine with me. But go back and watch the replay, and stuff. Don't let it be in vain and stuff. And go back, and if you made a comment and everything and stuff, go back and check your comment, or somebody else's that you saw had a good comment and stuff, and see if I responded to it correctly, and everything. And then if you come up with some things that you want to talk about and stuff, just message me, and stuff. Usually on Facebook Messenger, I'm getting a lot better about catching it and everything and stuff like that. But also, just check me out and stuff. I'm on like, tag, and share. I'm on YouTube, streaming simultaneously from both platforms, Facebook Live and YouTube and stuff for now and stuff. I might add a couple more once I find out how to get it all going and stuff like that. But at the end of the day and stuff, your body is a snitch. Believe it. Let's take care of our bodies. Let's start learning. Let's get rid of all these stigmas that the doctors, they so stupid and everything. No, they not. They really smart, and stuff like that. They're very smart and stuff. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for staying on here. And even if you just watch this, okay, your time will come when you want to come on and talk to me and stuff. And I will be glad to talk to you and everything. I see Sandra said, really enjoyed this podcast tonight, but must go. See you next Tuesday. All right, that's the deal. and stuff. Thank you, Miss Sandra. And Rosetta Granny Allen said, uh, lesson learned, every teaching, loved every teaching, more and more. Thank you and stuff. And I hope you get what you need out of it. Because if you did that, then my job is done. I did what I came on to do and stuff like that. So I thank you guys. And like I said, like, tag, and share. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Medical Talk in Layman's Terms with Nurse Charlene. And you'll be able to see all past and, past and the present one that's today and everything. And thank you for coming on and hanging out with me and stuff. I enjoyed each and every one of you, and I appreciate you. And it ain't nothing you can do about that. Thank you all. All right. Bye-bye. Yeah.